I am Ron Story from SpeakerHub, and you're joined here today on the support call by Maria, who is our designer, and Angela, who's our head of operations. And this is all we do daily, Monday to Friday, that where we answer questions from speakers, whether they're a SpeakerHub customer or not, or they may be a part of the group, need a speaker, be a speaker on LinkedIn. And we answer calls for speakers that are wanting to give more things. So, Anna and Ruth, I saw you had your camera on for a second. If you want to introduce yourself so we know who you are, great. And if not, that's okay too. So, but that's what we're doing. So we'll just wait until more people join and we'll answer more questions. Ruth, nice to meet you.
Hi. Hi, nice to meet you as well.
Where are you calling in from?
I'm in Northern Ontario, Canada, in North Bay.
Okay, all right. And what is it that you speak about?
Primarily sales. I pre-COVID, I was my business speaking and sales training was ramping up, and then COVID hit and it all stopped, shut down, and I haven't really revisited it since. And when I did revisit it post-COVID, I was finding that there weren't a lot of speaking opportunities, like paid speaking opportunities, really available as much as there used to be. So I kind of took a break from it, and now I'm looking to get back into it.
So what did you find that it changed after COVID?
Just just that there were primarily only free gigs that were available, if at all. So just the volume of them had gone down, which makes sense. But even with the trade shows coming back online, conferences, all of that, I just still wasn't really, you know, I haven't looked that much into it at this point. So, you know, hopefully that's starting to take up steam. I know there's been a lot of movement to podcasts. I just they don't really generate much for me beyond just to be able to say I was on this podcast. So yeah, if I'm going to put the effort into it, I really am just interested in getting back into paid speaking gigs, which with my sales background, I know that's something you know, I know I can deliver well on. Um, and I, yeah, I'm just I, I'm on the point where I'm prepared to breathe. This point.
Mhm. Oh, no, that's part of the you see any of our content and last 6 months, to what's happening with SpeakerHub, because if we had
Yeah, even like the new announcement to us about the new trash was so I was yeah, I've been really focused on a little bit new. I hope not. I'm getting ready for so that was you can vote because it has sources right about that really well.
yep, right, because so with the bill.
Maybe just is it in move to
So sure enough, quick, real good. One comes up and just
the first year.
For any gig that I want. How do you think I get that, right, Ruth?
Discounting your products?
Nope. I will buy the time on stage. Because if I'm in a room full of people that are my ideal customer, I don't need them to pay me. I'll pay them for that opportunity, because I know that my customers are going to come. I'm going to get my money out of the audience, not from the event planner. So the event that I made the most on, I got paid $148,000 from one 45-minute speech, because I could sell to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I don't know any event planner that would pay Les Brown $150,000 to come talk. Not to mention my little behind. Okay. So, but because I knew how to take what would actually a negative speaking gig where I had to pay to get on it and turn it into a profitable gig, that was the difference maker. So let me be clear to everyone who's watching this. I don't believe anybody should speak for free. I think there's no such thing as free speech. I don't believe in free speech. But I do believe that there are a lot of speakers who don't know how to turn what may appear to be a free speech into a paid speech. That's our job here at SpeakerHub, is to teach you and all of our clients how to get paid. Every time that you open your mouth, you should hear ching, 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 ching. Even if it's Colombian pesos, you should see money coming in, right? Because that's the purpose of speaking, right? It should be a transfer of value, meaning that your words and your intellectual property is being exchanged for either referrals or other opportunities or even money when you go to talk. So we do that through what we observe, we call speaker flywheel. That flywheel on one side is all about inbound. That's the old SpeakerHub profile, where when someone searches you in Google, they can find you. You don't want them to find your Instagram. You want them to find you where you're talking about doing your speaking and you have your speaker reel. On the other side is outbound, where you're constantly pitching other gigs. And you're saying, they don't know about me, but I know about them. And this is the stage I want to be on. So that's outbound pitching. When you do both of those, everything changes. Because when someone sends an outbound pitch, the first thing they're going to do is click to see who you are on your website, on your LinkedIn, or on your SpeakerHub profile. So if you don't have the inbound set up properly, when you decide to do outbound, they don't work. But if you're just waiting on inbound and you're not doing outbound, then you don't get the momentum that everyone else is getting, because they're proactively pitching while you're waiting to be discovered. Does that make sense, Sharon? Okay, right? So we do that through podcasts, associations, conferences, and press. Ruth, quick question. If you think of your top 5 speakers, have you heard all 5 of them speak live and in person?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. That's why we tell people to go on podcasts. Because your top 5 favorite speakers wouldn't be your top 5 favorite speakers if you didn't hear them in a different modality other than on a live stage.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we didn't read a book about them, or we didn't take a course from them, or see some other type of training on YouTube. So that's why we include the podcasting, right?
Okay.
So podcasting is really important. Our entire business, PitchDB, was built off of 0 ad spend and 100% podcast interviews. We made enough money there to buy SpeakerHub, the largest directory in the world. just from doing podcast interviews. So I understand that people say, well, podcasts don't pay. You just been hanging with the wrong people. Come on over here. We got you. Come on over here. I'll show you how to make money on podcasts. Right? So that's really important because I live in Medellin, Colombia, and I don't want to fly 14 hours to the States to do a $5,000 speaking gig that someone wants to pay for when I can hop on a podcast and get the same number of customers just staying here in my house.
Yeah.
Now, I'll always like to show this because, you know, at SpeakerHub, for those who don't know, at the new SpeakerHub, we only talk about things that we've done. We never will teach you something that we're not already living. So when I come in here and I go, let me just type in YouTube, what you'll see is Gregory, I met with him yesterday and I sent him a link to our stuff after our meeting. And I just listened to you on such and such podcast. This Edson. Hey, how do you do? Hey, that's performing today.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm a firm believer that podcasts can help you to build a business. I don't get paid to go on podcast, but my ancillary business on the outside is supported by those podcast appearances. So that's why we're a really big fan of podcasts. But if you're a new speaker and you haven't established yourself on stage, the best way to prove to an association that you know what you're talking about is to send them a couple podcast interviews that you've been on. Because now they can listen to you and say, oh, her perspective is really cool, or his perspective is great. I never thought of it that way. I would love to have him come in and talk to us about leadership or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yep, for sure.
If you're new and you've never done a speaking gig and now you get a small group of 20 to 30 executives in a room at an association, you take your nephew with the iPhone and you say, record me as I give this speech. Don't turn it around and show that there's only 6 people in the room. Just focus on Uncle Ron up here and make me look good. And then I use that to create my first speaker reel. Now, not only can I send podcasts, but now I can send video of me on stage doing what I told them I could do. We use those reels in order to pitch to larger conferences. Because when it comes to a conference, I have to be event planner insurance. They've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into this event. If I embarrass the event planner who booked me, they may lose their job. But they also have a small network of people where my reputation is burned.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we use the flywheel where everything we teach is around getting more exposure to podcasts because even our favorite speakers, we've learned about them through podcasts. Getting associations because we can sell our consulting and our sales training to the executives in the room, and getting the conferences because they give us cool pictures. Right?
Yeah.
But that's really all you get out of conferences, really the cool pictures and maybe something else, but most of the time it's the cool picture and the ego, right? But that can turn into thought leadership where you get a column in Business Insider or Forbes or something of that sort, so that when you go to that next conference, you can raise your speaking fee by 50%. Because if I introduce you as Ruth, what's your last name, Ruth?
Vanderson.
Okay. If I introduced you as Ruth Vineyardson, sales coach, right? That's totally different than if I introduced you as Ruth Vineyardson, SKO Speaker of the Year,
Mm-hmm.
and columnist for Sales and Marketing Magazine. Totally different way to introduce you, right? Totally different way to apply for a speaking gig because it removes all the questions of, does she really know what she's talking about regarding sales?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yep, for sure.
So I know your world very well because I'm a salesperson, but I also work with this guy, right? Matt Pollitt. And Matt was Selling Power's SKO Speaker of the Year, right? We Matt was a done for you client of ours, and we also host events together, but we provide him a lot of the data that he uses. So underneath, even though we have this fancy software on the top, SpeakerHub is a data company. We're not a booking agency. We're a data company that gives speakers who agents haven't wanted to work with just yet the opportunity to represent themselves. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're supplying your agent with the opportunities because they use our data and our software also, right? And they're just doing the outbound outreaches for you. So that's what we do. That's what we teach. Everything we do on this call is around that. We encourage everyone who believes in the speaker flywheel to stick with us. And everyone else, they're just going to be frustrated because that's all we teach. So, it's the way that I've learned to book speakers. Um, with the 300 speakers I worked with in the agency last year, we found that to be the most effective way. And we have people on this call who use the flywheel, such as Janika and Ann McNeil and Janessa, AJ, Bart. They all use the flywheel to their advantage, and they will attest that just follow the steps, it works.
Okay.
So we're not here to convince you that you should follow our steps, but we're here to show you our steps and allow you to make that decision, right? So, Sharon, good to see you. You want to introduce yourself? I don't know if is this your first time on the call?
It is. It is my first time on the
Okay,
call.
you gotta introduce yourself. We gotta know who we talking to.
Yeah. My name is Sharon D. Brown. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the owner of Self Care U Academy.
Okay, and what is that?
Pretty much what that is that my main focus is helping entrepreneurs and leaders utilize self-care for their superpowers and to sustain their sanity.
Okay, all right. And you do speaking gigs now? You do coaching?
More so coaching, and my goal is to get into speaking.
Okay, cool. Did you do any gigs in 2024, or are you just starting out?
Just starting out.
Okay, perfect. So here at SpeakerHub, we've worked with a lot of speakers, and we have 64,000 users of our software. So we had to categorize speakers so that we know who to talk to and what they should be doing. And part of that flywheel that you see, um, it has different stages based on where you are. So if you're a new person that's watching this and you're just exploring if speaking is even worth it for you, we call that exploring, meaning you should probably just be going on podcasts, learning to perfect your message and to see if this is something you really want to do. Once you get beyond that exploring phase, you become an emerging speaker, meaning that you're 0 to 3 years and you're probably comfortable asking for up to $3,000 for a gig without shaking in your boots. So that's an emerging speaker. An experienced speaker is someone that's been doing it for 4 to 8 years, and you're probably comfortable asking for 4 to 8 grand per event that you want to get paid at. And the expert speaker is beyond that, where you're 8 years and above, and you're doing this as a full-time job where this is your main source of income, and your fees are over $8,000 per speaking gig. So based on where you are, we always want to know so that we know that we're not talking down to you if you're an experienced speaker or talking over your head if you're just getting started. So we always try to base the training based on that level of speaker, whether you're full-time or part-time. We don't judge. We don't even put you in the categories. We let you select where you believe you should be. Because if you can't be self-aware with yourself, you ain't gonna be honest with us. So we let you pick where you believe you're supposed to be, and we go from there. So Sharon, we would love to have you um, as a customer of ours. Again, we're not gonna force you to work with us, but we're gonna show you the proof and make it hard for you to decide not to. Okay. So we're very results driven. We talk about the numbers. The reason that we do that is because we have a formula that we call the speaker launch formula. and I'll share that with you. But one of the main parts of the speaker launch formula is a word that has kind of been lost in American society today, which is accountability. So I believe that it's impossible for me to hold someone accountable if I'm not willing to be held accountable on my side. So I'm going to share this with you and you'll see what I'm talking about. Got to find the page because it ain't opening. Speaker launch formula. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm like, where's my thing? All right. So we teach this formula called SPACE, and we believe that this is the key to getting consistent gigs, right? So the first part of the SPACE formula is you need a strategy. And if you don't have a strategy in anything that you're doing, you're already going to be in a bad position. So our strategy, as I was mentioning earlier, is the speaker flywheel, right? Let me go back up. I think I'm too far in my presentation here that I wasn't trying to show. Here it is here, right? So the S is strategy. And if you don't have a strategy in what you're trying to do, you could appear to be going in the same direction, but it requires different instructions. If I'm trying to build a house, I have to have a completely different strategy than if I'm trying to build a skyscraper. So what we want to do is to make sure that based on where you are in your speaking career and the speaker flywheel, that your strategy fits. So as I mentioned, there are different levels of speakers. And if you're just starting out, you probably want to focus on podcasts and associations because you can build your following by going on podcast and working on your making that self-carepreneur a real word in the minds of people, right? Well, let me give you a great example of this, Sharon. You ever heard of the 7 habits?
Yes.
What's the rest of it? 7 habits of what?
Of successful people, I think.
Yeah, it's close, right? 7 habits of highly
Yeah.
effective people, right? But you know
Mm-hmm.
why? Because nobody had ever introduced that until Stephen Covey put that into everybody's brain.
Mm-hmm.
So he sold cassette tapes on it. He sold courses. He did interviews. He was doing seminars before there was YouTube. But he made sure that we knew what 7 habits was. So if anybody else said 7 habits, we knew they stole it from Stephen. Does that make sense? So we call that a proliferation of a framework. If you hear anybody else on earth talk about a speaker flywheel, they stole it from us, right? The trademark application is already filed. They stole it from us, right? So we want to make sure that self-carepreneur gets in the minds of people the same way. You need to be on every podcast you can get on. So when somebody types in self-carepreneur, Sharon Brown. Self-care entrepreneur, Sharon Brown. They should think about self-carepreneur and you, not AJ. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So if AJ goes and tries to teach on that, they say he stole that from Sharon. That's why podcasts are so important because you can reach thousands of people at once. And Inception, you remember that movie Inception? You could put an idea in somebody's brain. You can plant this idea of the self-care entrepreneur in a lot of people's heads as you perfect the message. If you saw the original speaker flywheel, it wasn't this fancy, but we taught it anyway. And then we developed it and we made it a little bit more better. Then we filed it up and we polished it. It became a lot prettier. But it took the work of me talking about it every day. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So the first thing you need is a strategy. After you have a strategy, you need a process, right? You need a process, something that you can do that's repeatable on a daily basis. When I was a financial advisor, for Northwestern Mutual, I knew I had to make a minimum of 40 phone calls a day. 40 dials an hour is what we used to talk about, right? And most people would, dialing for dollars, they would only do it for an hour. Because I was new and I was poor and I didn't have anything else to do. I was a college student with a bunch of free time. I called 200 people a day. As somebody with no experience, there were 2,000 college students that did this internship every year. I was number 55 my first year. Not because I was smarter than everybody, I just outworked everybody. So you need a process that we could do as speakers on a daily basis. That's why we have some people on this call that are here every day, because this is their pitching hour. Most speakers and solopreneurs, they wake up in the morning and they doing 19 other things. They don't have a regularly set schedule. I know what my schedule is from when I wake up until I go to sleep every single day. Right? But I know if I'm not doing the sales activities, then we're not going to be in business. So you need a repeatable process. That process is what we've defined based on where you are in your speaker journey. So if you're an emerging speaker, here's the recipe, Sharon. Next year, if you went on 48 podcasts, how would you feel?
Oh, definitely accomplished.
Yeah, that would be good, right?
Mhm.
On top of those 4 podcasts a month, you did one local speaking gig with the Chamber of Commerce or the Insurance Association or the Association of Accountants or something like that. If you did 12 of those next year, how would you feel?
Oh, wonderful.
Okay. I'm going to give you the exact recipe of what you need to do inside SpeakerHub to accomplish that. If you want to take a screenshot, here's your chance. You need to reach out to 2 podcasts every day and 3 associations. And I can send you the slides, right? But 2 podcasts and 3 associations a day over a year's time should put you on 48 podcasts and get you at least 12 speaking gigs with small associations. As someone who's brand new, you won't be brand new anymore because this number of opportunities put you in the top 15% of speakers worldwide because the average speaker only does 5 gigs, not to mention 48 podcasts. Is that fair? You think you can send 5 emails a day?
Oh, yeah.
There you go. So you can use SpeakerHub, right? If you're a more advanced speaker and you're doing conferences, because you're a bit more experienced, you just need to reach out to 5 conferences on top of your podcast, your associations. And that'll get you 48 podcasts, 12 associations, and a conference per quarter. This is what we call the part-time speaker success formula. It's for the person who has a full-time job, but they're just not trying to speak and live in an airport. But they'll do a conference a quarter or go talk to a local business or a local association every month. If you're a full-time speaker where you're trying to be a thought leader, you need to add the media outlets because that's going to, number one, raise your fees, but you get paid for writing the articles. That person should be reaching out to twice as many. 4 podcasts a day, 6 associations, 8 conferences, and 2 magazines or so. Make sense? And that should get them 98 podcast appearances, 24 associations, 8 conferences, and probably credentials to write for 4 magazines. I go back to this because Tony Robbins did 240 podcast interviews in 60 days at the launch of his book. When we watch the presidential election, I can show you a clip of the acceptance speech for the president-elect of the United States of America. He didn't thank CBS, Fox, or anything else. They thanked 5 podcasts. Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, the Nelk Boys, and I can't remember the other 2. But they thanked 5 podcasters for the win of the presidential election. The world used to be controlled by megaphones. Now it's controlled by microphones. The people who have your small audience that's willing to listen to you for an hour, 2 hours a day, those are the folks that are your people. If I put you on Oprah tomorrow, Sharon, Oprah only gonna give you 3 minutes to talk about what you're talking about. I put you on Good Morning America tomorrow, you got 180 seconds, and you better know how to look at the right cameras. Right? What can you really say in 3 minutes that's gonna be life changing? But you get on a podcast for women that are entrepreneurs or men that are entrepreneurs that ain't taking care of themselves, you can talk to them for an hour and share everything you know. You see the difference?
Yes.
So that's what we teach. We teach this flywheel. We will live and die by this. You know, many of careers have been built on the same thing. It's just that nobody ever documented it. So you got the strategy, you got the process. But what's missing? Accountability. That's what these meetings are about. You're gonna see people come on here, we're gonna celebrate their wins. I got booked this week. I'm gonna be doing this next week. High five. That is one form of accountability. But you know the other side of accountability? I can't say, Janika, did you send your pictures if I didn't tell her how many to send? You got to be able to hold me accountable that our stuff works. Because everybody's bought a course or trading from somebody and then it didn't work. I watched the whole thing. I did exactly what they said. I was supposed to get pepperoni pizza. I ended up with French onion soup. This don't look nothing like the picture. You ever tried to make some cookies and you think your cookies, oh, I found the secret to making chocolate chip cookies round. Chocolate chip cookies are the worst cookies to make because you got to put the lump of cookie dough and hope that it melts in the right shape. Found the secret. Here's the secret to making them round. You take a glass when they're about 50% cooked. Once they melt it down, you take a glass and you put it on top of the cookie and you do it like that. And it rounds them. That's how they get them round. I saw it on TikTok. Don't tell nobody that secret, right? But it worked. I watched it. I was like, oh, that makes common sense. And he just did like that, and it rounded up the cookie, and all his cookies looked they was circular. You know, my cookies be looking like my hand when I take them out. Like, what type of cookie is this? This ain't even straight. Like I got crocodiles. You got chocolate chip crocodiles. No, okay. But that's the accountability part. So we're really big on accountability over here, right? We're gonna hold you accountable because you know what? You hold us accountable with your checkbook. When you stop paying, we know that we stop doing our part. Does that make sense? That means we're not getting you, yeah, scoop of ice cream. Hey, Sharon, know. She know the tricks, you know. Sharon baking cookies. I got it. Send me a box. You know, Bart, you want some cookies too? Send me a box of cookies, man. You know. AJ don't eat cookies. He only eat like vegetable juice and walks 15 miles a day. So he don't leave the cookies to us.
Here you go.
AJ didn't eat for 19 weeks. Like,
It was 40
tell
days.
me your story. Go ahead. Let's talk about AJ's fast. AJ fasted like he was Jesus, and he lost 87 pounds in 3 days.
I fasted. I did a water fast for 40 days and I lost 52 pounds. And Ron exaggerates like normal.
No, hey man, I wanted you to tell the story. Needed you to fact check me.
Yes. 40 days, 52 pounds.
40 days with water. I ain't
Yeah.
going 40 minutes without eating. Not to mention 40 days. Are you crazy? You know? But no, think of the level of discipline it takes, right? So, you know, people ask me all the time, what's the difference? Why is it that certain people, because I know a lot of people who are great at going to the gym, but that discipline doesn't carry over to their business, or they're great at the business, they don't go to the gym like me. I'm like, I ain't going, right? Why doesn't that discipline carry over? It really comes down to our personal values, right? And where you are in that season of your life. Now, I don't think most people are perfect. Look at Elon Musk, richest man in the world. That dude built like a toddler, right? He got a toddler's body. You ever see Elon with his shirt off? Oh my God, it's the worst. Now, he could definitely get a dietitian or something, but that ain't where his discipline is. So everybody will be good at something. But here's what we do know. What gets measured matters, right? So if you focus on the number of pictures you send, and you like Janika and you look at the leaderboard and you're competitive, you're gonna pitch a bunch of people. No different than if you look at the scale, you say, I'm never gonna weigh this amount. And if I get close to it, I'm gonna start doing something to lose, right? Or I know I can bench press 200 pounds. I wanna get to 220. So you start measuring your personal best or your personal records, right? Or I got a streak of this many days doing something. I wanna keep that streak going. When you start measuring things, you'll be surprised at the outcomes just because you're paying attention, right? So we show the leaderboard, we ask about it on a daily basis because I know that's what it takes. Why? Because in our agency, we weren't any more special than anybody on here. The only difference is that I have built-in accountability. If I didn't send the pitches, they send me a message, right? I got a message from Mira yesterday saying, Ron, my pitches didn't go out. I'm like, Mira, we had to get more data. She was like, okay, cool. Right? Right? And I'm like, all right, Mira, like this is how it works. Right? But she just wanted to clarify that that's what it was. Let me show you. I'll show you this really quickly. Again, I'm the most transparent person on earth. Right? Hey Ron, I noticed there was a pause in outreach. I haven't seen any emails going out. Yeah, we had to pull more conferences. We only had 200. Right? This is what we do. Accountability goes both ways. You see that? When I wasn't sending the pictures for her, what'd she say? Why you ain't sending my pictures? So we do the same thing back to y'all. Why you ain't, Janika, why I don't see you on the leaderboard? Right? No, I'm joking. But this is what it's about, guys. This is the only way I know how to win, right? If you've ever played any sports or has ever had a manager or a business person that cares about you, they're going to hold you accountable because it's not their job is to get the best out of you. I believe that the world can only be a better place if I can get more speakers on stages to counteract Sexy Red and all these other ignorant little folks that are making this stupid music. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that Bart can protect as many of these babies that are getting shot on a regular basis at school shootings as possible. I'm going to do as much as I can to make sure that Sharon can talk to entrepreneurs like me about, not sitting down for 8 hours a day on Zoom and getting up and walking and doing some, what's these things? What they call these? What's the name of this? People still do this at the gym? If you go, AJ,
Yes,
when you go to the gym, y'all be doing this?
I do that.
Yeah.
Arm circles. I do that. But you got to keep these rotators moving.
Man, look, come on, man. I think Richard Simmons invented this. I've been watching Sweating with the Oldies, doing this.
I think you're
That's
doing.
my
I think that was a host with a microphone sitting in a chair moving his arms. I think that's what you just did.
That ain't exercise, man. I thought this was the exercise. Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. That's stretching. That ain't even nothing. All right. So, but you all get the point. That accountability is important. So we want to provide that. We think that if you have the right strategy, the right process, and accountability, you will get consistently booked. You'll get consistent opportunities. Okay. So that's the gist of what we do. So hopefully, Ruth, that made sense to you. Sharon, as a newcomer, that made sense to you. Everyone else is pretty familiar with the speaker flywheel. One day I'm gonna let Janika teach this class so she can teach the flywheel because I know she know it. I say it every day, and she probably can teach this better than me at this point. Um, but we're gonna let her talk about the flywheel sometime. Any other questions? Nope.
Ann McNeil here. I do have a question.
And good to see you.
Yes, let me come off camera for a moment in my car. My question is, can someone get with me regarding what I'm pitching? Because the more I listen to you, the more I think that maybe I need to revisit what I'm saying in my pitch.
Okay.
And Lethea got with me and we did a framework. And I think that I may need to marry the two and or change something to
Yeah,
resonate more.
let's talk about it. So basically, let's set
Okay.
up a time where you and I can get
Okay.
together for 15 to 20
Perfect.
minutes. And what I'll do,
Okay.
I'll bring up campaigns that are of clients of ours that talk on your topic.
Perfect.
right? So
Perfect.
you can see like, hey, and I don't remember what your topic is right off my head, but I've worked with over 1,000 speakers over the last 6 years. So I've never had anybody say, well, you'll have that topic. Type in somebody's name and the person comes up, right?
Perfect.
And I can show you what's worked for them. And then we can just try to impose that on top of what you're doing. Does that
Perfect.
make sense?
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank
Yep,
you.
no problem.
All right.
Yeah. Any other questions? We got 13 minutes to go. Sharon, where are you located? What city you in?
I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Look at that. I tell you, Charlotte is the world capital of speakers. One out of every 3 speakers I talk to at SpeakerHub is from Charlotte.
Okay.
Like, I promise you, if you did a speaker convention and just said, hey, we're inviting all the speakers to the baseball game, it's going to fill the stadium up. But
Wow.
Charlotte ain't got a baseball team, but you invite them to a Hornets game. I guarantee you, if they did public speaker night, it would sell 20,000 tickets. So many public speakers in Charlotte, like a lot. So,
Okay.
yeah. So if you want to work with public speakers, look them up. North Carolina is the home of the speakers. Any other questions or comments, concerns? Anything to add? This is a community. It's not a pulpit. You know. No. All right.
Well,
Cool.
I'll just,
Any wins? Anybody have some wins they want to share from
yeah,
yesterday?
kind of, it's part of the overarching win in that I just got off a call for a podcast I'm going to be on that inadvertently had a date available this year, which I was surprised. So anyway, it's going to be January 7th now, but just the pre-call, able to get in and stuff. I guess the fun part of it is I know no one's talking about what I'm talking about in that safety security space. So although their podcast is kind of geared toward one thing, they just grashed on the parts that I was talking about. So it's very good. So, and I always say anytime that it's a win, it's always not necessarily announced it, but if I am talking about it, it's really just thanking you for what you created because it works. If I was to say anything, any new person that's even consider it, Ron will tell you his background is sales, but I don't think he sells this. I think he tells this. And then the proof is in the data. And then you just see it like, okay, but this works. I want to do this, and this. And all I have to do is, from there is just Nike. If you do it, then it's going to work. And if you don't do it, then nothing's going to work. You're back to where you started. And that's why you came here in the first place. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
No,
I'm
I
just
appreciate
thanking you guys again. I'll always thank you when there's a win. As soon as we get off of this, I got tons of emails to answer of conferences that either sent me their thing to apply or something. So yeah, you put me to work.
How's the follow up been going? I know we were kind of in like a 2 weeks where everybody's kind of following up because everybody overdid it.
I'm still not caught up. I'm a few from being caught up, but of the responses that I received from follow-ups that I've received follow-ups from, that's the first thing to do is thank me for following up. I appreciate you doing it. Even the guy with the podcast, like I'm glad you did that because it just got busy or whatever. So even that part works. Yeah. So, I mean, anyone listening for the first time, like, but coming every day, doing the work, and what you say is going to happen happens. That's that's a win. So
No, it's a big deal. I really appreciate that because, yeah, that's the whole point. You got to hold us accountable. And I would tell you not to just apply that to us, but to every coach or every company or service that you're purchasing. Hold them accountable to give you what you paid for. The worst thing that I ever hear is someone comes to us after they've purchased someone else's coaching program around public speaking that sold them on the career of public speaking, but they didn't give them the tools that they needed to generate the revenue. But then when they come to us, they say, well, I don't want to pay you because I got screwed over by this guy. And I'm like, but I didn't do that to you, right? Like, I can't pay for the sins of someone else. So it sounds like you need to talk to your credit card company and dispute that charge, right? Um, because that has nothing to do with us. So our things is we can't pay for the sins of other speakers, but we can renew your faith, right? If you didn't believe beforehand, we can help you to believe again, right? So, you know, that's my biggest promise to you. You can try us out. You can see if it works. And again, I'm not willing to down the cross of poverty in order to make you rich. Just how we see it. Like, I can't give you the stuff that I got to pay my team for. I can't give it to you for free so you can go rich and take credit for it. No, it'll be a value exchange. So that's how we look at it, and that's how it's worked. So,
I think I learn something every day. You'll say something. It may come at the end. It may be in there somewhere, and it may only be, 30 seconds worth, but I'll get something every day. So even understanding the media part. My thing about media, having done so much of the media before, was that I'll reach out to them, and my thought was I'll contribute to, from an article perspective, because the ones I worked with in the past, they would interview me, and that would become the article. I'm telling them about whatever. So that would be it. And then you got into it a little bit more, and I haven't done the PR thing on Facebook or anything yet. But once you start explaining about writing it, my first thought is, man, I don't want to. That's time. I don't want to write. Okay, you get paid whatever it is a minute. I mean, a word, got it. But then the more you talk, the more I begin to embrace the same message that I'm going to speak about, put that in the text. And then it became clear that, with all the publications around what I speak about, or even in the general area, even just putting in the text what I talk about, now that made that, much easier. And like you said, I wouldn't begin to, I can't, and I wouldn't even attempt to do that from an AI perspective. However, I can do it with a digital voice, and that thing will put out everything that I need to say that I'm talking about on the stage anyway. Then that can become an article. So it just became, when you explain it, I said, okay, now it's a little easier because I don't have to think about what I'm gonna say because I'm already saying it. Just put it in the text.
100%. Now, here's another. Let me go a little deeper than what Bart's talking about, right? So yesterday we talked a little bit about how do you get enough topics to talk about? How do you get all your stories and the things you can talk about? Well, if you have a signature speech, right, it's usually broken down into an opening, 3 points, and a closing. That's kind of like the standard thing. Some people have some variation of that, right? But each one of those points is its own speech that you could give. Like, I could give an entire speech on inbound prospecting, and then I can give an entire one on outbound, and then an entire one on how to use podcasts, an entire one on how to use media outlets and conferences and associations. Each one of those little pieces of my framework can be its own speech, right? Because it's so much depth that you can go into. You can do the same thing with articles. Write out the outline of your speech, of your main frameworks of your talks, and then put that in the chat GPT and say, give me 5 different variations of this. One for women, one for a man's perspective, one for teachers, one for corporations. Now I got the same thing, but I got 5 versions. I got Kool-Aid, but I got the red. It ain't strawberry, it's red. I got red, we got grape, and we got orange. It's red Kool-Aid. It ain't no flavor to red. It's red, right?
Strawberries are flavor. It tastes completely different than the red.
Hey man, in East St. Louis, it's red. The flavor red Kool-Aid is red. It may be fruit punch. It may be tropical punch. It may be raspberry. It's red. Okay. Now, you can break down your speech the same way, where you have this this spectrum of versions of your speech for different people and different sections. Does that make sense? So now you got a whole look, Bart, your one speech is probably 30 articles. Does that make sense? Because you could do something on surveillance, how to secure the perimeter of a business. You can do something, how to secure the entryway, what to do if something happens on the elevator, what to do on the steps. You got some, I don't even know, I'm making up stuff. You can tell that ain't my area, right? But you got all these different security things that you can go so far in depth into. And it's a different article every time that someone has never thought about. Maybe they had the cookies. Sharon, you make chocolate chip cookies?
Yeah, I do. That's what I was laughing because I'm like, that's too much. We use thing to put the thing on it, but yeah,
And
I
you
do.
do it like that? But you get
No,
it. You
I
do
use
it
the
with ice cream scoops,
mm-hmm.
right? But it still be crooked. But let me show you. Here's one of the funny things. What's the secret ingredient to chocolate chip cookies that nobody knows about? What do you think it is? Salt.
Mm-hmm.
Chocolate chip cookie is the only cookie you put salt in that I know about. And
Okay.
that's what makes it not be too sweet and not with the salt is what makes it a chocolate chip cookie, right? Now, I've tried to make it without salt and it don't taste right. And you put that salt in there, you're like, oh. And then if you want it crispy, put the butter in there cold. You want it soft, use margarine. I'm like, oh, these are little bitty tricks. Now, if nobody teaches that or they didn't write the article, now, how many chocolate chip cookie recipes do you think there are online? Millions. But guess what? There are going to be millions more because somebody has a different perspective on it. So don't tell me they didn't already covered your topic. We don't need another taco recipe, but somebody gonna make one today. we don't we don't need another chocolate chip cookie recipe, but somebody's gonna make one today. So give your version of your chocolate chip cookies. Give them your recipe, your 7 steps, your 7 habits. Don't be concerned that other people are already doing it. Does that make sense? So, guys, we're at 1 o'clock, which is our time. Normally we will go into overtime, in which today, if there aren't any other questions, I'm gonna say that we don't because I got a 1:15 and I need to get some lunch in between my next 8 meetings that are back to back. But was this helpful, Sharon?
Very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we want you on our team. We need your message out there. There's a lot of self-carepreneurs that need to be out here self-caring, I mean, I'm gonna make it look good. See, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm working. Yeah, that's it. So we're here every day at noon, from noon to 1, unless there's extra questions and I have extra time. We'll sometimes go over it. But no, we're excited about what's going on. And don't forget, Ange, can you put my calendar link in the ambassador group so that Ann
I
can
get it.
hop on and we can get
I
that
sent
taken
it to
care of?
I sent it to
Um,
her already.
Janika with hair wrap number 837 today. I've never seen the one that was the net. Looks good. Always good to see you, Bart. Thanks again. And I will catch up with y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye.